so funny. Why did it do that, I wonder?
I'm not sure. So if you want to just like, you can turn on your video so we can see, and you can change your name down the bottom. Just like click on your little thing and say like rename. My sister Lauren set this up, so she's doing her sneaky ways and here in disguise with everyone's profile. Oh,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, welcome everyone as you're joining in. Just making sure you have your microphone on mute, and you can put your video on. It makes it better so we're all like kind of here being seen.
I'm muted now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't want to have your video, but it's good if you do. Just to kind of show up and be in the space. We can see your beautiful faces. So I'm just like clicking everyone to admit as they come in. So while we're waiting for everyone to come in, let's just just get your video on, change your name on your screen. For those who are just joining, you can just click and just rename your screen to your name if it says Lauren. And you can, once you've done that, you can just close down your eyes and just begin to kind of drop into your center, into your space where you are. And beginning to just take your hands over your womb, and you can just start to take some deep breaths. So closing down your eyes, and you can place your hands like in a downward triangle like this over your womb, and just begin to start taking some deep womb breaths. So breathing in deep, all the way down into your womb. Grounding yourself, centering yourself, and then exhaling and just letting out some sound. Deep breath in, all the way into your womb, expanding your belly as much as you can. And then exhale, letting out some sound. Again, inhale. Again, deep breath in, all the way down into your womb. Feeling into this powerful center, the center point of your being, of your feminine essence. And then exhale, release. Just want to sync everyone up in the space so we're all on the same page, all grounded, centered, ready for this powerful journey we're about to go on. So just keep with that breath, keep with the sound. It's really important to make some sound. You know, if that's like foreign to you, sounding, then this could be one of the biggest kind of breakthroughs of this session. Just that ability to let go of what anyone thinks, what you sound like, and just really allowing a sound to move out of your body from your womb. So you're going to deep breath in and then exhale. So the more open your sound is and your voice is, the more pleasure you can experience. So just keep with that flow. Deep breath in and exhale with some sound. Inhale and exhale with some sound. Okay, so just wait a few more moments. Just keep with this breath and the sound. And really feeling into your intention for being here. So we asked in the email to really, before you come in here, get clear on your intention for being here. And I want to just invite you to anchor that intention into your womb as you breathe in. And then exhale with the sound, just surrendering to that intention. Again, inhale. Breathe that intention into your womb. And then exhale. Surrender, let go of anything in the way, blocking you from being present and fully receiving that intention. Again, breathe in the intention into your womb. And then exhale. Letting go any blockages to your center, to your pleasure, to your feminine essence, to feeling authentic, to feeling present and juicy. So again, just one more deep breath in. And then exhale, releasing. Okay. So you can just slowly begin to open the eyes when you feel ready. So, welcome everyone. So excited to be here with all of you and with Rosie.
Good morning, beautiful.
Thank you so much for being here, and yeah, just saying yes to this powerful vortex that we're creating. So we've got 90 women live here right now, and you know, we had over 1,000 of you register. So this is going to be a powerful transmission that was going to go out to many, many women across the globe. And what better topic to talk about than pleasure in times when maybe, you know, like what we're kind of experiencing, what we've been in as a global community in the past like few months, maybe pleasure has been a bit absent. So, you know, when fear comes up and these emotions like survival threats and like really real things that like a lot of the planet, a lot of us are facing get kind of brought up, it's like the last thing sometimes we can think about is pleasure. And I personally felt that, like really went into this like dark spiral of the first couple of weeks that all this kind of like, you know, blew up, and I forgot to literally self-pleasure and prioritize pleasure. And I don't know if any of you can relate to that. It's like all these other things were just taking the forefront of my mind. And then it was just, I noticed like this blockage in my system. And, you know, I worked a lot of like through a lot of those blocks to really live like a juicy, feminine driven life and like in my sensuality. And it made me really realize, like, remember what it was like back when I was really disconnected from pleasure, and maybe what a lot of women, you know, a lot of you, some of you maybe have been experiencing during this, and the importance of prioritizing pleasure. Because as soon as I felt like I tapped back into it, it was like everything just like, my nervous system relaxed. I could just feel more like present to life, present to my partner, present to my friends and my work. And it was just like the missing ingredient that we need to prioritize, you know, no matter what is going on. It's such a powerful healing medicine. And so, of course, I wanted to bring on the queen of the Yoni Pleasure Palace, one of my dear sisters. We've been friends for over 10 years, and through like, you know, all the things from starting our businesses to, you know, like all those hurdles we overcame at the start to where we are now, like over 10 years later. So introducing Rosie Rees.
Hi, beautiful. Hi, everybody. It's so crazy that we met when we were 21. We met when we were clubbing. We met when we were like backpacking, and we've just seen each other through, you know, we worked in the corporate industry for a while together. Like it was just this journey, and now here we are, gosh, over 10 years later, and on such a same trajectory. You know, we're both doing such similar work in the world, and this is important work for sure. And I've found during COVID, it's funny because it's Masturbation May. It's great that we're talking about this, but I've found self-pleasure has taken a back seat because because there's more people at home. So I've had less time alone, and I find I usually only self-pleasure when I'm alone in the house. But I find my sex life has increased. So it's interesting. I don't know if you've noticed that as well. And if you have, put it in the comments box as well. Yeah, this is such a great time to connect with ourselves, yet sometimes it can just seem like not a priority.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to like just open it up first before we start, like kind of go on like a journey from like the blocks to pleasure. So if we could open that up to all of you to maybe like write in the comment blocks, as Rosie said, like maybe some of the blockages you find like to accessing pleasure, like just you can write those in the comment now, and we can kind of speak into that and talk about like what we've experienced personally, and then like what we see with clients, and some tips I feel to like overcoming these blockages. So if you want to just write that in the comment.
So there's depression, kids around, housemates, anxiety, uncertainty, sometimes even like desire discrepancy between partners as well. That's what a lot of sessions that I've been doing with clients, like one person will really want it and then the other person won't. I find, like I said, having kids at home every single day and having people in the house, it's no bigger cock block. Like it's really important to be alone and to be able to connect to yourself. Trauma, physical numbness,
productivity, prioritizing like work. Okay, so
feeling lonely, exhaustion, letting go, body image.
Yeah, it's a big one. So maybe we can speak into like, I guess like some of the main ones, like I'm seeing like a trauma and like a disconnection from body, you know, these are some big ones like that I'm seeing coming through here, and that privacy, which I mean, so maybe if you want to speak into like the body image side of it, Rosie, like, and then I can speak into the trauma side, like how to overcome these blocks.
Yeah, so I teach, for those of you who don't know, I teach women's naked yoga, and I have done for 6 years, and it's honestly the most empowering, liberating body of work I've ever done personally and that I've ever taught. It sounds terrifying to most people, but what happens when the women come to these workshops is they let everything, like they let go, they shed, they take off this layer of insecurity, inhibitions, low self-worth, loathing, and when we do that, like, it's amazing how many times I hear women literally go home and make love to themselves or make love to their partner, conceive a baby, like start to have internal orgasms. So, and what I noticed, this is like 6 years ago, I realized body image and sexuality are so intimately linked. When you have a low body image perception of your body, that just filters directly into your sex life, because you don't want your partner to see you naked. You want the lights off. You don't feel almost like worthy or deserving of orgasm. Like, there's so many different things that can happen. But when you start to work on your body image, your sex life, your orgasmic potential, the way you touch your body completely changes. And for me, the thing that helped me do that was getting naked. So I just started literally 6 years ago, rolling my yoga mat out. You don't even need to know how to do yoga. It's just about body movement. And I would just take off all my clothes. I'd usually do it either in my bedroom or out underneath the trees in my backyard. And I would just be with my body. And, initially when I looked down at my body, I hated what I saw, and I was so critical and so mean, so nasty to myself. And the more I did naked yoga and just really started touching my body and just telling her, rather than I love you, I love you, I love you, I would just be like, I accept you where you are right now. I accept you as you are right now. And Nads, like you taught me so many years ago, we are addicted to self-improvement, and self-acceptance is like the key to self-love. Like even in isolation right now, like I was saying to my partner last night, which we put on jeans for the first time in 6 to 8 weeks, and we literally, neither of us could tie our buttons up. Like we could not get our jeans on. I've put on, I think, nearly 10 kilos since the middle of last year. But do you know what? The middle of last year, I had a really anxious period of my life, and I was the skinniest I've ever been, but I was the most unhappy I've ever been. And now I'm actually so happy. I've put on all this weight in isolation, but it's like, just even when I was tying up my jeans, I was like, I accept you as you are, Rosie. You are beautiful just as you are right now. You don't need to lose that 5 or 10 kilos. So it's just, and being with that, and knowing that when you do that, your body like listens to that and is able to open with a partner, is able to, surrender and be seen. Because if you're happy with this, if you're, accepting of this, like whoever you're with is going to accept it too.
Yeah, it's so true. And yeah, like can completely relate to that. Like just that link between, like feeling sexy and feeling pleasure being like linked directly to health and feeling how you feel in your body. And it like literally hasn't been until I literally shared a story this morning, like about this, the past few years where, I'm 33 now. It wasn't until probably like 27, 28, Rosie saw me in my anorexia days back in like, when I was like 23, like so thin, so hard on myself, like wouldn't even eat a lint ball because it's pleasure. It was like denying like the good things in life, like pleasure of like food. And it's like, think about how much we do that to ourselves as women, like these ideal standards of beauty, of like being so rake thin and then cutting off ourselves from things that just taste good. And it wasn't until I really started letting my intuition guide what I ate, like what I actually felt, what brought me pleasure and what made me feel good in my body, that like my body just balanced out naturally. Like I am a healthy weight, not underweight, and just overall, yeah, it's that feeling of feeling good and like in love with my body and accepting of my body. And I think this is one of the biggest shifts, is like starting with, the body. So like pleasure not being limited just to, having an orgasm. It's like literally, what do we eat? Like, how do we find pleasure in like how we feed ourselves as a foundational thing, how we touch our body, like this physical vessel, like how are we putting on our makeup? Like, are we just like rushing in the morning? We're like not even rubbing on oil on our bodies. Like, how do we make like our body experience a pleasurable one? So that's like one tip I feel like is literally like the relationship to food, and shifting it from like, oh, how is this meal going to like help me lose weight, or to how is this meal going to make me feel after I eat it? And naturally you're going to want to eat like healthy foods because, if you ate McDonald's every day, you're not going to feel really that good in yourself. But, like not depriving of sweets. Like if your body really wants to move towards that and it brings pleasure, then you can tap into that pleasure frequency, and it's not going to be this thing in the shadow, because the more we deny those like treats and the naughty things, then it turns into this taboo, and then we like binge, and then we turn, it creates this cycle. And I can tell you like, my journey with that, like the whole binge eating, bulimia, like that firsthand, it was like the more I suppressed pleasure, the things that I really, really wanted to eat, like that little lint ball, then I would, have a build-up of lint balls and then just pig out on like all the lint balls and all the cake and just like go to the extreme. And that's not healthy. It's not like a moderation. It's not having pleasure in every day. It's just like, oh, I'm going to reserve pleasure for when I'm just worthy of it or deserving of it, as opposed to being in pleasure like all the time. So yeah, like I feel that's...
Does anyone follow my hashtag sensual eating? So I created this like, maybe even 2.5 years ago now. And I was in my kitchen and I just chopped up this delicious mango. It was the middle of summer and I just started eating it, and I just slowed it right down. I was like, this is so delicious. And then I thought, you know what? No shame. I'm just going to video this and put it out there. I don't care what people think. And I literally put my phone up and I just started eating it, and it was so delicious. I just did it so slowly, and I have never received so many DMs in my life. And what it did, and so I hashtag sensual eating, what it did is it gave all these other women permission to do exactly the same. Because I was like, women, let's all do this, because not only are we being sensual and erotic in our own being and you know, shamelessly, but we're slowly eating. Like, you can bring slowness and sensuality to absolutely everything you do in your life. And eating, and think the most mundane things, you can actually make a sensual practice. And I just think of it as like a meditation, or like an act of presence. And eating is like literally the best thing to really slow down. And so actually, and I get a lot of messages even now, like I wake up to an inbox full of people tagging me in their sensual eating, which I just think is incredible. But what it actually started doing is helping women who had eating disorders, and because they started to actually slow down and enjoy what they were eating, rather than, you know, binging, or rather than depriving. They were like, okay, well, if I'm going to eat, I'm going to really enjoy it and let it be something really seductive and delectable and delicious. And you know, when that kind of vibration goes into your body will listen to you and will respond to that. So definitely try whatever you're eating, try doing it, and then try videoing it and posting it. Tag us both and we'll reshare it, because it's just amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. And also like having no like like releasing the idea of like what we need to eat. Like, for example, I posted this morning, like my thing is the goddess diet. It's like, this is my first ebook I ever wrote, and Rosie probably knows, like I often eat chocolate for breakfast, and I'm like, well, it's the goddess diet. Like, I just joke about it. It's like, it's really about like eating whatever the fuck you want. Like, if you want to eat a raw treat for breakfast, like going for it. And like, it makes me happy. And like, it really, it nourishes me. I feel good after that. And it's like, that's the frequency that the pleasure like is derived from. So really looking at that, like for yourself, like what, your relationship is to your foods. Like, how can you bring more pleasure into that? Like, even preparing it, like, you know, like we're all at home, like making it like a ritual, and like really taking it slow, not just like, you know, whipping it up on the fry pan, just like taking slow, like putting loving energy into what you're putting into your body, and making that ritual, like Rose is saying, like eating slowly and mindfully, and tasting like every single, you know, mouthful and like flavor that's in that meal. So,
and then you'll notice you'll start walking differently, you'll start talking differently, you'll start kissing your partner differently, you'll like wash your hands differently. Like, there's just, so it does really filter into other parts of your life.
Yeah. So I wanted to, just, we can both kind of share into this, like into what the major blockages are, like to stepping into that trauma. I mean, stepping into that pleasure. So like trauma being one of them. So, like I'll share first, and if you want to share some stuff as well around that. So like your journey with that is, so what the major blockages are, and then like how we can like overcome them. So for me, it was like, you know, I experienced sexual abuse when I was quite young. So when I was like 6, and like full violation of boundaries. And the thing that I really have unpacked with doing work around that was like, there was actually a lot of pleasure that I experienced during that experience. And the thing that like resulted from that was like, I felt shame because it was wrong. It was wrong. You know, it was like my uncle that this thing happened with. It's like, this is wrong. So this belief system got like embedded in my body, like pleasure is wrong. Like, you got to like, you know, like suppress that, and like not really like allowing myself to feel pleasure. And this is what took me on that journey of, I guess like what led to eating disorders was really a lot around this like deprivation of pleasure in all its spectrums, and, you know, having trouble orgasming and opening up intimately with partners when I was younger. And so one of the biggest like things that I've found to help overcome like sexual trauma in any form, you know, it can be, you could have experienced something really intense, or even just like someone entering you without love, like all these things really can shut down that like ability to experience pleasure. And the biggest things that have helped me have been the self-pleasure practice and also the tantric practices. So like the Jade Egg practice, the womb, connecting to my womb, and also erotic dance. So like dancing erotically with myself and pleasuring myself, and doing that with that Jade Egg practice, and this as like a solo journey. So when I started kind of like working with exploring my own body for myself, not just like outsourcing it to a boyfriend or, you know, whoever I was with, like, oh, you pleasure me. Like, I don't know how to pleasure me. Once I started to like really explore my own self with these tools, like the Jade Egg and like working with conscious menstruation and then like dancing, these things really helped reclaim like, and really helped me explore what I liked, you know, and what felt good for me, not like handing that over to someone else. Because the more that we know ourselves, and like the more that, you know, we can like explore our own body, then we are more empowered sexually. And when we go to a partner, it's more like a wholesome experience, not just like, oh, here, you just figure me out. And it's like, no, like it's that saying, like, you can't love someone unless you love yourself, or someone, you can't even receive love from someone if you don't love yourself. So self-pleasure is really a great way to like start that journey. And some people say, you know, like, I don't know what to do. Like, it just feels weird. Like, how do I even, it just feels awkward if I just lie on my bed. And so that's why like I find the Jade Egg and like the tools that Rosie shares, like the wands and stuff, these are good. Like, it's like something that's kind of, you can explore, and there's practices around that. And, you know, I have a course that helps with that, and also with menstruation and practices around that to kind of guide you through it to start, because it can be foreign, especially if you've never really like done that, or it's just like there's a lot of shame around it. It's like sometimes you need like a guiding hand, and having like the format that we both have with online courses is a really powerful way, because you can kind of do it in your own privacy of your home and just in your own space. And yeah, these practices have literally like transformed my life in all dimensions. Like, when we tap into the more pleasure, it's like we literally are healthier and happier and wholesome, more able to like experience more pleasure with our partners, like our hormones balance, and, you know, like eating disorders are overcome, like all areas. Like, you make more money when you're tapped into your pleasure and like what you desire. This is like your intuition leading you into what is really going to result in true abundance, really. So it's a journey that like is a really personal one. And I really believe that to explore Tantra and these practices as women, it's like really powerful to do on your own or in a group of women first, to really have that initiation into, you know, so you feel safe, because the foundation is safety. To really open up your pleasure, we need to feel safe as women. We need to feel loved. We need to feel like, you know, is this partner actually like, does he want to be with me or she want to be with me? Is this like someone that really has my best interests at heart? You know, so these things are really things we need to have at the forefront, and they come from your own practice within and your own self-exploration within yourself. So yeah, I'm curious, like, if anyone uses Jade Eggs or does like blood rituals with their menstruation, if you want to comment. And I'll pass it over to you, Rosie. So like, what's been your journey with like healing? Yeah, like any kind of sexual blockages, and then like the tools and practices you obviously now teach and created your business around.
Yeah, wow. So yeah, trauma is a big one. And I feel like there's like hard trauma and soft trauma, and I feel like every woman's been through something traumatic, particularly around sexuality. And I've always been such a sexual person from the get-go. Like, my first sexual experience, I was 6 years old with another girl, and I didn't speak about it until my 20s, until I was doing a coaching session with a woman and she had the same experience. And then like literally every single coaching session came back to a woman having a sexual experience at a really young age and shutting down her sexuality because she felt so much shame, because our parent, not to point the finger or blame anyone, because it's really no one's fault. It's just the way our society kind of is structured. our parents aren't educating us, our mother and our father aren't talking to us openly and passing down important information about sexuality and masturbation and pleasure and consent and boundaries, and I could go on, and our schools are really letting us down. So then we, you know, we're having these sexual experiences like you experienced as well, Nadine, and then we're kind of like feeling all this shame about it, and we push it down. And then usually, like a lot of the times, if we've experienced something traumatic, we'll kind of, particularly if you have, you know, experienced rape or anything like that, afterwards we kind of turn on ourselves, and then we just like, we blame ourselves, and then we go and sleep with lots of people or take lots of drugs or start drinking a lot, and it just ends up in this huge spiral. And so I found myself in my early 20s, and I also throw in a Catholic upbringing into that, and that kind of adds a whole other layer of shame and religious guilt, you know, because I thought if I didn't have sex with my husband, like I should have got married and had sex after that. Like I had all this shame up until I was about 25, and I met a partner who helped me debunk that and helped me, because I was still carrying so much shame about sleeping with so many people, because I became very promiscuous in my early 20s despite what my yoni was telling me. Like I was getting UTIs, thrush, bacterial vaginosis on the regular, and yet I was not listening. Like I just kept doing it. I just kept going out on the weekend, sleeping with someone new, and you know, it was just so unhealthy. And not that sleeping around is, I don't want to label that as a bad thing either, because you can do that from a really empowered space. But I was definitely doing it from love me, somebody love me and fill up my cup and, you know, be with me, and then I'd get brokenhearted. And so similar to you, Nadine, I discovered the Jade Egg when I was 26 in Bali at a workshop, and like my life hasn't been the same since. And I've got the Jade Egg that I actually used that workshop, and I've kept it. It's just such an important part of my journey, because what it did was it helped me reclaim my sexuality, and not even just my sexuality, but just that part of my body. When I put it into my body, and this was after massaging my breasts and expressing, releasing, and really doing all these woo-woo practices that I'd never done before. When I put it inside my body, it was like, oh, it was like this coming home, and like, she's mine. She's not anybody else's. This is my part of my body, and it's not for giving something to somebody, and it's not for, you know, getting something. So yeah, after that, it was just building that yoni voice connection, like starting to learn, okay, what does she want? What does she need? What does she fear? What does she desire? And being able to communicate that to my partners. And you know what? I actually took sex off the menu for a while. I just really focused on my breasts, because I feel like a lot of women who've experienced trauma, it's like they're very disconnected and numb from the belly button down. So it is important to don't just start going there, because it could re-traumatize, or you could just be like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, I'm not feeling anything. So actually going to your breasts, going to your heart first, and connect here. And often in my coaching sessions, it is literally just getting women to get comfortable to actually touch their breasts. A lot of women actually don't even do that. And really getting into a routine of breast massage, connecting with the heart, because as we know in ancient tantric tradition, the heart space in a woman is her positive pole. So we need to be giving, you know, we give so much to everyone else. It's like our breasts are our breastfeeding, you know, they feed our young kind of thing. We've got to be giving back to this part of our body. And naturally, when we start to do that, our yoni will open, especially when we start really stimulating the nipples. Then our yoni starts to open, and then start touching your tummy, letting your tummy be really soft, and massaging the wound space, and just really gradually going to the yoni. Because what you don't want to do is rush it and just pop a yoni egg in just to heal your trauma. You want to let yourself go on a journey of what you're comfortable with, find your limit, and then just like really pause there, and then go a little bit further. And then using, you know, the crystal yoni wands and the diamond glass wands are amazing for internal massage and internal de-armoring.
Yeah, and definitely speaking into that, like around really having that awareness as women that our heart is the gateway into opening our yoni and opening our full orgasm pleasure. So what that means is like physically, like literally having that connection. So what does it feel like when we connect to our breasts and our heart first? So the breast massage is a tangible experience of that. And then when you kind of feel that connection of feeling like love in your body and linking that with the sexual arousal, this rewires our brains as women, because we're so often taught, you know, in like society and like from things like porn, that it's just, oh, we're just always down to fuck. And it's like, no, actually, like we are actually wired a lot differently to men. Like men are actually more, you know, their sexual energy is fire. So they're always ready to like be activated. And then the gateway into their heart is through that sexual fire. And then that opens up a man's heart. Whereas like for women, we're the opposite. It's like this opening the heart space and feeling, you know, when we feel like a man actually is there, or a partner is there to really be there and love us, and they're genuinely interested in us, then we can fully open up into deeper orgasmic states. And this is really something that I wish I knew when I was younger. And it really came down to that I didn't love myself, and I didn't even know how to like, I was so disconnected to my breasts and like to my sense of self-love. And it was like, the more that I learned how to love myself, then naturally it's like I would lead a man there first, like in the way of like, you know, not just getting him to give me a breast massage. It's like seeing if he's really there, like, you know, having boundaries, having like, it's like, I am a goddess and you all are goddesses. It's like, you're not just going to let anyone into that temple. It's like, this is a sacred temple that a man is really like, or a partner, woman, whatever, is really, it's a blessing to be merging in that way. It's such a sacred act, sexual union. And so reclaiming that part of yourself really sets that standard. And then men want to feel that. Like they want to feel like they're engaging and really like feeling like, not like the challenge, but it's like they respect that more. And it's more of like a valuable gift that they're receiving as well. Whereas if it's just like, just put it all out there, and you're not coming from a respect, you know, you can do it in an empowered way, like Rosie was saying, but like if it's coming from a lack of self-love and just letting anyone in this sacred temple, then that can cause trauma. Like that can cause like a shutdown of the yoni pleasure, and also the connection, this important connection of heart energy and sexual energy. So a lot of what we see is like women really connected to their sexual energy, and it's like really like, you know, sexy, slutty, like that wild energy, but they're not connecting to the heart, or it's like really in the heart and it's very like virginal and pure and like, you know, like a bit too extreme that way, but they're not really connected to sexual energy. So to link up those two, these practices that we both teach are really help that connection. So you can feel like what it feels like to feel turned on and still connected to the heart. And that's that like really powerful feminine gift, is that like, it's like the maiden and the whore like merged as one. You know, we often see like, oh, it's got to be either one or the other, like the Eve or the Lilith. And it's like, no, actually we are both. We are all archetypes as women, and we have a chance to embody that on our own in these practices, you know, that we can guide you through. So being like one of the main things to really, I really would love for you to take away that, like that gift of just really honoring like your sacred temple before inviting a man in or a partner into your temple. It's like if you lived in, you know, like a beautiful golden temple, you're not just going to let anyone in. You see all the temples, there's always like two, you know, cats or like lions at the gate, like they're gatekeepers of the temple. And this is like really your it's your yoni is the gateway to your temple. So what are you letting in? And so I feel the jade egg practice and the crystal wand practices, for me, that what I experienced and also what I've witnessed with many women is that rewiring of the sacred yes and sacred no. So like, what are you actually saying yes to? So often I'll guide women through a jade egg practice, and we'll literally hold the egg at the entrance for maybe like 10 to 20 minutes. And I'm like really asking them, like, is your body wanting to receive this? Is your body wanting to receive this? Like be honest with yourself. And sometimes they'll say no. And this, if if there has been sexual boundaries crossed, this in itself is literally rewiring your mind-body connection to owning what it feels like in your body to say no, and then what it feels like to say yes. So when you authentically want to like receive into your body. So this is like a way to really rewire that neural pathway that we do get confused if we've experienced some sort of sexual trauma. We don't know what a yes is or a no is because we never had that chance to really have a mature yes or no as a young person, or even like older, you know, it doesn't matter what age, like it can really muddle our sense of boundaries and self. So that jade egg practice in itself is one of the most potent, like, I don't know if you agree with that, Rosie, like that, like holding at the entrance and like inviting it in, that sipping the egg in, like really, that's been one of the most powerful practices of the jade egg for me. Experience
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely encourage all the women in my membership and my course to just wait. We're always rushing and busy, and I think just literally bringing the egg to the entrance and just pausing there.
Yeah.
And even before doing that, I usually tell women to just leave it in their bra for the day, or sleep with it under their pillow for the day. Connect with it. Connect with whatever you're putting into your body, whether that's a tampon, a menstrual cup, dildo, penis, finger. Like it. Make sure it is a yes, because trauma is created when we say yes but we mean no, and then that creates this disconnect or this mistrust. Your vagina literally stops trusting you, and that's when things like vulvodynia come around, and like vaginismus and chronic pelvic tension, because your vagina is speaking for you. She's saying, I don't want anything in me. You're not listening to me. And on a physiological level, a lot of women we're very, like I said, busy, uptight, stressed, and we're sucking in our tummy. We've got to have that flat stomach as well. And so it's just creating so much pelvic tension. And a lot of women ask me, can I use a yoni egg if I have pelvic tension? I actually think that you can. Usually I would suggest like a pleasure wand, because what you can do, this is one called the Fleur. It's a rose quartz wand. You can just rest the wand at the entrance and massage even a little circle around the entrance of the yoni. And actually that space, that entrance, the vestibule, is where a lot of women hold the most tension, because it's like your lips. The lips are, they're sealed. It's like this, it's like your mouth, right? You've got these beautiful lips. The vagina is like your throat. The back of the throat, the glottis is like the cervix. Like it is a mouth within itself, except down here, right? So just like what you would think about what you want to eat and what you want to taste. So think your yoni has the same mindset in a way. Like she wants to know what's going into her mouth and how that's going to feel and how that's going to taste and how that's going to digest. So, you've got to be really conscious of the dildos that you are putting into your body as well. So I used to use the most cheapest, I'd go to Sexpo and get a show bag with the cheapest dildos. It was great because I explored my body and I learned how to have an orgasm. But when I discovered crystal wands, it was just amazing. So just massaging around the entrance and then letting it go in really slowly, like literally centimeter by centimeter, and bringing that level of presence and awareness can actually be the healing, down there that you need. And you can do the exact same with an egg. So there's a few questions around like yoni egg 101 stuff. So there's usually like a little hole at the top, and then you can thread through some string. And what a really nice practice to do is just gently rolling it around and seeing if it kind of swallows it in, right? Like just taking it in a little bit, and just the firmness, the hardness of the crystal against the vaginal walls, and making sure you've used lots of coconut oil or like an organic plant-based lube, and just letting the yoni take it in, and then pulling on the string and then pulling it back out to the entrance. And this is all I did really for the first month. I remember because there wasn't anyone doing it around 7 years ago in Australia. And I remember posting about it on my Instagram, and I had all these like traditional tantra teachers were like, this is obscene. Because I was saying how I was basically self-pleasuring with the egg. And they were like, the yoni egg is not for self-pleasure. It's not for masturbation. I was like, well, you know what? This is how I want to use it right now. And sucking it in really slowly and then drawing it out was incredibly healing for me. And within that first month of just doing that, and maybe like leaving it in for a while and walking around the house and doing some yoga, within a month, I was having G-spot squirting orgasms, which I literally thought were a myth. Like, I had a tantra teacher when I think I was about 21 try to make me squirt. Nothing was happening. I thought, no, I'm broken. I can't do this. I don't even believe in internal orgasms. Like, I could have a clitoral orgasm easy. And it wasn't until I actually like came home to my own yoni and connected with her, touched her, felt her, tasted her, smelled her, like got okay with all of that, that she started becoming more orgasmic internally. I don't know if you can relate to that as well, Nadine.
Yeah, so my biggest thing has been, I remember we talked about this before we started this call. We were talking about our own orgasmic pleasure and like our journey. Like, so mine started more as the external, so experiencing clitoral orgasms really young. And you mentioned yours was like you were exploring internal and then you had clitoral later. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like
I was 12 when I discovered my clit. And I remember being pressed up against the back of the door because I didn't want anyone to come in, and I was like rubbing it really quick. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if this is pleasurable or painful. But you know, the shame of someone walking in actually stopped me from going on, and I didn't touch my clit again till I was like 17, 18.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like one of the biggest things, just the shame, like blocking it. And I'm sure many of you have experienced that. Like my experience was, yeah, being so young and having that experience of sexual abuse, but also I was also really active and like activated and rubbing myself on like my toys and stuff, you know, like, and really like activated quite young. And thankfully, like, I never had like my parents like blatantly shame, but it was just more like, oh, just go in your room and do that, you know. But what I experienced more was the shame of the sexual experience and like it being so good and then realizing it was wrong. So but what I've like really got to like explore and been playing with is seeing like the clitoris as that kind of like the entry point, like the maiden energy, like that kind of erotic innocence, you know, because it is that kind of first, it's like flirty, it's fun, and really like reclaiming that archetype through a clitoral orgasm. Because what I hear so much is like, well, not so much, but like a lot of like teachers, you've probably seen this, like really discount that clitoral orgasm is like wrong. It's like, oh no, there's more to, like, it's like some people are still really exploring that and reclaiming things like sexual trauma. So, and I believe like all pleasure is pleasure. It's like if you're having a clitoral orgasm, run that energy, like don't deny that, you know, like own that. And I even experienced a little bit, I was like, oh no, I need to like focus on different because, you know, it's more mature. And it's like, no, I'm going to own this maiden energy and like really like embody the flirtiness and the fun of the clitoral orgasm. So yeah, my point being just like, if you're there, just owning that and like exploring like how good it feels and like releasing anyone's fucking indoctrination about what is right, what is wrong. It's like, what is right for you is you own your pleasure, you know, like reclaiming that for yourself. And then like, yeah, I feel like more the internal orgasm, like G-spot, like squirting from a G-spot orgasm, that like opened up more when I was a bit like older. So maybe around like 26, I had that first experience, and it was linked to emotional. It was linked directly to my emotions and my connection to this man. Like I felt he just loved me so deeply, and I could feel that. And it was just so psychological for me. It's just like, that's why I'm talking about this, like the more pleasure we experience is often linked to like how the depth of trust and love with our partner. So that being a foundation for, you know, experiencing that with another person. And yeah, so that's been my experience with internal orgasms. And I'm just really at a place now just exploring that. So like more internal and building the energy with the clitoral orgasm, but not orgasming with it, because I find sometimes like there's so much sensitivity and takes away the kind of, all the blood goes to the clit, and then like I can't really feel as much internally because it's just such a powerful peak orgasm. But what I've been playing with is just building the energy through the clitoris, like feeling really, really turned on, but not coming to a peak, and then allowing my partner to enter me. And it's just like, oh, like so sensitive inside, and experiencing that G-spot orgasm. And then deeper, you know, there's like the cervix orgasm. And that's like a whole nother level, you know, like of just I see that kind of more as like that, like mystic, like the wise woman. It's like really like going into a deeper aspect of our being. It's very sensitive, our cervix. And so I think like the wands are really, they've helped me like massage the cervix and like release any, because what we hold in our yonis internally and externally, it's just like any muscle. We have tension in the muscles. So any emotion we experience, our mind can't hold the emotion. It actually gets stored in a muscle in the body. So that's why practices like, you know, embodiment, movement, dance, yoga, things that move your body, it's helping release stuck energy. And obviously, you know, often we don't do any practices for our yoni, or we don't go and get we don't go get a massage and then they give you a massage inside of your yoni at the end. So it's like we can do these things for ourselves. And that's what I feel these the Jade Egg practice and like the wands are really helpful for, to do that first for yourself, like to help massage internally, like literally using the egg when you use it is massaging internally your yoni and releasing tension on an unconscious level. And this results in, you know, all sorts of benefits, you know, like more orgasms, better blood flow when you're bleeding, like less loss of blood, balanced hormones, more, yeah, just like more orgasmic potential. So
more
yeah,
lubrication.
yeah. And really, one of the biggest things is like, one of the biggest things I would love for everyone to kind of do is like start to like a journal, like a desire journal. Like, what do you desire and fantasies? Like, what do you like fantasize about? Like, what turns you on? You know, like even just writing about that, like what really turns you on. It doesn't have to be anything sexually. It could be like anything, like just like, you know, when you're just like in the pool and it just feels so nice, like the water and the ocean, like what turns you on, like you as an individual, and starting to journal about that. Because once you know what you need and what like feels good for you, this helps you really like own more of your pleasure and like live more in that pleasure state. So, you know, maybe for you, maybe you're not sure. So suggest some of the things we talked about, like slow eating, or starting a practice with the Jade Egg, starting to work with like conscious menstruation, getting a wand, and like exploring. So, you know, wherever you're at, just that's a really good practice to do, a desire journal and fantasy journal.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you feel like you're inorgasmic, like I coach a lot of women who've never had an orgasm or struggle to have clickgasms. It's for me, when I was 19 and I'd never self-pleasure, I'd put my fingers inside me and I think I was having, you know, looking back now, I think I was having internal orgasms, you know, from a young age, because I would just go into the shower. I went to boarding school, so I had zero privacy. We literally didn't even have a door on our rooms. So I'd go into the shower and just put my fingers inside my vagina and go as deep as I could go. This is like when I was 14 to kind of 17. And just, I would like flick my cervix and then hook back and kind of rub against my G-spot. And for me, that would just make me orgasm and it would take my breath away. And I just felt absolutely amazing. And so now I still love that. Like I'm with a woman now. I don't feel like you just need to be, I had in my head that I had to be with a man to experience, you know, this sexual pleasure and these orgasms. But actually being with a woman and having fingers, it's just as good as a penis or anything else. And I find at different times during my month, and she'll often say to me like, oh, your cervix is a bit lower today, you know, you must be at this time in your cycle and this is the kind of pressure and pleasure that you prefer on this day. And you're like, we are so in tune with each other's bodies and each other's vaginas and cervixes. It's insane. And it's amazing how, yeah, at different times, the 4 different phases, I feel like completely different things. Like there's a period in my cycle where I don't even want to have a clickgasm. It doesn't even feel good. I tell her, don't even go there. But please penetrate me really deeply. Like it's just really getting in tune and connected with your vagina, tuning into what she wants at different phases in your cycle. Because there's a lot of different things that you can do. And it's nice to kind of, if you are with a man, try taking sex off the menu for a month and exploring going back to basics and exploring
Mm.
fingers and tongues and,
Yeah.
you know, because that actually, you know, oral sex is really where you can kind of explore more depths. I find like you can really be quite, it's a very vulnerable thing, to open your legs and really let somebody see you and do some yoni gazing and get them to describe your yoni. And it often you'll just cry. Like sometimes if it's the first time you've ever done that, obviously do it with yourself first. Do everything with yourself first, because it is nice to, you know, we can't expect anybody else to really give us an orgasm if we haven't tried ourselves. So when I was 19 and I went to that sex toy shop and I bought this pink vibrating rabbit thing, I did not leave my bedroom that day until I figured out how to give myself an orgasm. Like, be so dedicated to your pleasure, just like, you know, you want that job or that career or that house or whatever. It's like you just so focused on it. Like, be really focused on your pleasure. Like, figure out what is a fuck yes, what's a no, what feels good. Like, I changed positions. I'm pretty sure I masturbated in the car that day. Like, really get clued in to what your yoni needs, because she will tell you. And don't leave your room until you've figured it out. Like, be really committed.
Mm.
Prioritize your pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, just on that, like getting to know your yoni and like its cycles and rhythms, like, sure, a lot of you know, part of like a lot of my work is around menstrual cycles and really familiarizing us as women like with our cycle and flow, and working with the cycle, the 4-week cycle, as like a way to do that, to really connect to what's actually going on. Like, what is my unique cycle? What am I feeling like during my menstrual phase? What am I experiencing during my premenstrual phase? Tracking it as like a blueprint for pleasure and just a deeper connection to yourself as a woman, and really reclaiming your feminine essence. And so, you know, I teach that in my online course, the Creatress. It's a 4-week course that goes through each phase of the cycles of our cycle and gives you practices and rituals to do each week of your menstrual cycle. And, you know, that in itself, like reconnecting and experiencing like some of the things like connecting to your blood, seeing what it looks like, smelling it, this in itself is like a huge thing of releasing body shame and releasing like, you know, any unconscious shame we have around our sexuality, our body, our femininity. So many women, we're taught to just like, you know, put in a tampon and keep on going. And it's like, this is telling ourselves like, shut off the connection to the feminine, shut off connection to pleasure. And that unconscious like belief system riddles our psyche. And so by working directly with your menstrual cycle really helps to break out of those patterns, because you're literally working with your body. It's not just like, oh, we're just going to do a like positive affirmation. It's like, no, you're actually like connecting with your body. And that's what these practices were both all about, like our embodiment practices, because that's what the feminine is. It's like being in the body and like really having that connection to the body, which is pleasure, which is sexuality and orgasm and like all the things like the senses. Like the masculine is more about the mind and like, you know, consciousness, but which is, we're not saying deny that, but it's like we're in a world where we're very accustomed to being the mind, but like there's a lack of connection to the body, you know. So yeah, that's really what these practices and this whole journey as being a woman is about, is learning how to really like experience pleasure, experience sensuality, and like experience the joy of life. So yeah.
Someone's just asked here, if you've had too many clitoral orgasms in your life, can that lose sensitivity? How can someone work to revert? Okay, this is me. I literally used my vibrator for 5 years. Probably not every day, but I was addicted to that. And then when I discovered the Jade Egg and when I went into this sort of tantric relationship with a man, I literally quit vibrators, and I haven't used a vibrator for almost 7 years now, 6-7 years. It took, I would have to say, it almost took me 6 to 12 months to actually feel much sensation on my clit. So I would actually purposely not have clitoral orgasms to build up more sensation. And even now, if I usually only have 1 or 2 clitgasms a week with my partner, or with myself, and sometimes not even that. Like sometimes I just prefer internal. So the less you pleasure your clitoris, the more that you'll start having sleep-gasms. Like I actually had a dream, not last night, the night before. I had a vibrator on I must be like craving it at the moment. I actually was dreaming that I had a vibrator on my clit, and I woke up just before I orgasmed. So I didn't actually have an orgasm. So the more you kind of, what's the word, sublimate, like you don't have a clitgasm, it's kind of like a man's ejaculation, the more that's going to build up orgasmic energy in your genitals and in your body. So you'll start to have those sleep-gasms, but also you'll have stronger orgasms with your partner. So sometimes I'll purposely not have a clitgasm for a week or so, and then have sex with my partner, and it will just be so much blood flow and energy. So that's, if you want to reverse that numbness, just like I've got all the women in my Golden Yoni membership group quitting their vibrator for 1 month and just focusing on yoni egg practice and just doing internal stimulation with a wand. So no vibrator. You can still touch your clit, but when I touch my clitoris now, it's literally like this. Like it's not even like rubbing hard. It's like seriously, so it's so swollen and like full of blood flow, and you just have to do that and it feels good. So yeah, it's this, when you think about it, the slower and the more soft the touch, actually the more sensation you get. Whereas if you're really firm and rubbing something really hard, actually it gets more desensitized and more numb.
Yeah.
There's also a question here, Nadine, about the smell of your blood. I don't know about you, but sometimes the smell of my blood is like really pungent and I don't like it, and other times it's super sweet. Is that like, that's different kind of in your cycle and what you've gone through that month?
Yeah, so usually like the consistency of the blood, the smell, the color, it's all directly linked to what you're releasing from your subconscious that month. So when we're bleeding, we're releasing like literally the uterus lining, which is holding like a lot of our subconscious beliefs, traumas, like things that we're like needing to literally shed from the body. So one of the most powerful practices that I teach in the Creatress course is the week before we bleed, like practices literally to do to help you release those emotions, because that whole thing that society calls PMS as a syndrome, it's not a syndrome. This is just like, let's just delete that from our minds right now. It's like, this is one of the most powerful weeks of like anything that wants to be released from you, so you can like really like clear it out in order to make way for new creative energy to come through. Everything that's there that's blocking that is going to come up during that week. And so if we're just like going about our day and just like, masking it over, then it's going to create like more of a heavy period, maybe more intense smell or pain. So this last period, I literally just finished bleeding like a few days ago. I had a lot of stuff come up. It was like the Scorpio full moon, and I did like the practices that I teach, but a lot of them, like the, emotional release practices, shaking, like beating pillows, like releasing anger, like intense stuff was coming up. And this period was like literally the most smooth I've ever had. Like, and my periods are generally like, last a day or 2 days, not much pain, just a little bit of like cramp, but this one was like clean, nothing. Because it was just because I'd really expressed a lot of that like unconscious like stuff that was like wanting to be released out of the body. And then like when we do that, we have like a cleaner slate to create, because our womb is that portal of creation. So if we have stuff stuck in there, it blocks not only our orgasm, our yoni like potential of orgasm, but also like that creative energy from flowing. So really passionate about that. So we've been going for an hour. So is there anything that you wanted to kind of like share before we finish, like with the girls, Rosie?
There is one question that I missed from Natasha Rose. She said, I find I pull back during an orgasm from the bearing down. I get worried you're bearing down too much. So when you're orgasming, when you're coming to that peak of orgasm, see if you can squeeze up rather than bear down. And you can kind of explore this sensation, because if you're bearing down, imagine that's a pushing out. That's like kind of when you go to the toilet and you bear down to, do a number 2. That's like a releasing of energy. See if you can kind of, when you're in that space, pull up and squeeze up. In fact, sometimes when I'm close to orgasm, I'll just sort of pulse my pelvic floor, and that'll actually bring on orgasm quicker. So see if you can even imagine drawing the energy up and channeling it through your body, kind of as an implosion rather than an explosion. That's a nice way to kind of see if you, and you can never bear, I don't think you can bear down too much. I mean, it's, yeah, if it feels good, don't ever stop yourself doing something that feels really good. I think did you want to add anything to that?
Just that, there is a thing around, and that's what's, you know, saying like some of the teachers, tantra teachers and stuff talk about clit orgasms, you know, avoid them. Like, I don't agree with that, but like I agree with the fact that like it is an explosive, so it does actually push energy out. Whereas like if you can just build the energy with the clitoral, and then as Rose is saying, like, and then take it internal, like either with penetration or breathing, and
using your breath,
and like the mula bandha, which, you know, when you strengthen those pelvic floor muscles from the jade egg, that's what helps squeeze and draw the energy up. And so this helps you have more of an internal orgasm, because the energy is like coming up, it's not being leaked out with a weak pelvic floor, and the clit does push it out. And that's why sometimes you can feel like, oh, whoa, like kind of a bit drained after. And it doesn't drain us like as much as it does with like men when they ejaculate, but it can be like, whoa, that was like a huge, like, but then when you just like, you know, build the energy with the clit and then bring it up and in, then it can feel more like energizing, and just the energy goes up your body as opposed to just like pushing it out.
Like, don't waste that energy.
Yeah. Someone said, like, do you need an egg to strengthen pelvic floor? Like, I mean, that's what it's designed for, but like you can obviously, you know, things like Pilates, like I've always been a huge fan of like ab work and ab workouts. I love my stomach, and like just like, you know, how
I love your stomach too, Nadine. Nadine has like such a toned, sexy tummy, such a belly dancing tummy.
Yeah, but these you know, like even just doing sit-ups and like these Pilates, they're all working with the pelvic floor. The egg just adds that, like obviously the qualities of the crystal, and then also the specific practices just focused on your yoni. So yeah, to answer, no, you don't, but like it helps, you know.
It's a weight resistance. So it's definitely, you know, they did studies back in the 1940s with Dr. Kegel, and he got a group of women, two groups of women, and one group he gave a Kegel device to actually, and they all had urinary incontinence, and he gave one group of women the device to put inside them, and another group he didn't give them anything, he just told them to do their Kegels or their pelvic floor exercises. The group that used the Kegel device inside their vagina to do their Kegels were 93% more effective at eliminating incontinence completely. So that was a study from the 1940s, and you know, I mean, women have been using this jade egg for centuries or for thousands of years. Because, you know, back then, if you think about it, we didn't have surgeries to magically lift up our uterus, our bowel, and our bladder. So you never I don't believe you're ever too young to really start using this, or never too old. You know, it's important to prioritize your pelvic floor at any age. And unfortunately, a lot of women fall pregnant and they're like, oh God, I've got to do something because it's all going to go south after this. So it's never too late to start using it, for sure. And I have a yoni egg online course with 10 different yoni egg yoga sessions. So if you're keen to really dive into it, that's all on my website on rosierees.com, which is lots of juicy yoni egg practices. Because some people just buy the egg and then it literally just gathers dust in their bedside drawer and they don't know what to do with it. So I think it's important to have the tools to know how to use it, and that's why I created the Golden Yoni membership as well, which is a Facebook group that you can like literally ask any questions, but each week I guide women through a different topic, and each week I'm doing yoni egg exercises, womb meditations, breast massages, like everything to do with yoni related embodiment work.
Yeah, love it. So yeah, it's been so good being here with everyone and just seeing all your questions. I hope we've answered a lot of them. Like, we've covered so much in this 1 hour. I'm like sweating.
You're in Bali.
Yeah.
So jealous. I got my heater on pumping next to me.
So yeah, we love you all so much. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to send this recording to everyone who's registered here, and obviously all the others who are registered in email. And then I'm going to link in all of the ways you can work deeper with this stuff. So with Rosie, like the Yoni Pleasure Palace to get crystal wands and pleasure toys, and then her course and the Golden Yoni membership. And then for me, I've got my Creatress online course to deepen into your menstrual practice and really like reconnect to your menstrual cycle and the blood and like your creative life force. And yeah, and jade eggs and all the menstrual cups and all the things you need to really like tap into your full feminine essence. So these are some of the ways, and we both do one-on-one coaching as well. That's always available, mentorships. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And I really would suggest, doing those practices that we talked about. So the fruit eating, sensual eating, like erotic dance. I'm going to send you my playlist, Pure Sex Chill Dub. It's my favorite stripper playlist that I like to dance to and just really start to move. Like the music evokes it, you know. And then, and feeling, if you feel called to working deeper with the jade eggs and the menstruation and the crystals, then we've got you covered.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Nadine. It's always a pleasure to see you. And thank you to all the women who've been on this for over an hour and asking all your questions. It's been so amazing to share it with you.
Yeah, thank you, beautifuls. Thank you, Rosie.
Go self-pleasure.
Yeah.
You.
We love you.
Vietnam.
Okay, if you want to, I'll just turn off the recording now.